delivering the first presentation.
Okay.
Kaltum, you've stopped sharing.
Yeah, I will. Because I had to start the recording. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Priya. Welcome back for everyone. Good morning or good afternoon for some of you also. So today is the second day of this workshop on Article 6 reporting and its linkage with the Enhanced Transparency Framework, which is organized by CBGSP in collaboration with our colleagues from GGI and RCC MENA. And today, in this workshop, we will focus on the foundations of Article 6 reporting, initial reports, annual information, and CARP. So today we will explore the main reporting obligations under Article 6.2, and this includes understanding what must be included in the initial reports before a party can start engaging in cooperative approaches, what annual information must be submitted for each year, and which ITMO transfer occur, and how these elements are reflected in the CARP. We will also highlight links with national registries and tracking systems. And by the end of this session, you should have like a clear understanding of how Article 6 information fits within the Enhanced Transparency Framework. We will look also at how to report cooperative approaches and ITMOs transactions in a manner that is fully consistent with BTR requirements, including, like, for example, the structured summary for NDC counter. We will also discuss how consistency must be ensured across multiple reporting channels, like, for example, the national registry, national tracking systems, the CARP, and also the BTR tables or the CTF tables and narratives. Here is our agenda for today. So we will begin with an overview of the key elements of Article 6 reporting, followed by walkthroughs of initial report requirements and annual information and CARP functionalities that will be presented by our colleague, Mr. Krishnan from RCC MENA. And we will then have a detailed session on the linkage between ITMOs and BTR and how Article 6 reporting, Article 6 regular information could be connected with NDC counting. And this session will be delivered by our colleague, Mr. Sid Naudori from GGI MENA. And finally, and as usually, we will close the webinar series with a short quiz and feedback session to capture like your insights and areas where you may need more support for next year. So now let me please call my colleague Uma from RCC MENA to deliver the opening remarks. Over to you, Frey.
I think over to Uma. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, colleagues. First of all, good morning to everyone. My name is Uma Maheshwaran. I work with the RCC MENA and South Asia. We cover across 30 odd countries from Mauritania to Bhutan. So we work with countries specifically on various aspects of climate action. So we work on Article 6 adaptation, NDC, climate finance. So there are like four colleagues from RCC MENA South Asia support the countries in various thematic areas which I have mentioned. So in this webinar, first of all, thank you so much to the CBIT colleagues to invite us, and we are very excited to be part of this webinar series. Unfortunately, like Frian, I was also not there yesterday. Apologies for that. It's good to see that we had 80 plus participants. I think I started getting the FOMO, like yesterday I missed it, but today I'll try to do the justification as much as possible. So without much of further ado, let me get into the conversation of what is the Article 6 reporting. So specific to Article 6, we all know that. So before we go
Before
into the
Uma,
Article 6, yeah.
if you could just I am wondering if Sid would like to deliver any opening remarks, few words before we start
I'm okay, thank you. So
on
we
behalf
already
of.
covered it yesterday, so let's get into it
Yeah,
straight away. Thank you.
that's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for giving the equal opportunity to both the presenters. Thank you, Kelton, on this.
See.
Yeah. So, colleagues, many of you know that now Article 6 is is an international tool which is very much under implementation. I will not use the word fully operationalization, but it is like we have the opportunity to be utilizing the tool to its full extent towards the NDC implementation, be it is in the buy side or be it in the sell side. So it's like we have an international tool now. It took like 9 years for us to get into the point where we are. Good thing is that last year COP we delivered the landmark agreement saying that we have the Article 6, and now in this year COP there was not much of deliberations because it was already agreed that Article 6 is an international tool. And this COP delivered macro level implementation related guidance from the COP. Like, for example, under the Article 6.2, we have a good amount of guidance on the reporting, on the technical expert review, how it happens, registries. A lot of capacity building is expected in the next years. As the colleague from Sudan has mentioned, if any of the colleague from Syria, Libya, uh, four more countries, RCC MENA South Asia is doing a regional 4-day intensive capacity building workshop for the NFPs. So we have already sent our request to the countries to nominate their Article 6 experts. We already received multiple nominations. We are still waiting for the colleagues from Algeria, Libya, Palestine, and Syrian Republic. If any of you are from this part of the world, please reach out to us. We will be more than happy to have you listed into the 4-day training program, which is going to be in Oman, Muscat, from 15th to 18th of December. So looking forward to see you, the colleague from Sudan. So just a introduction about on the capacity building. So specific to Article 6.4, we have now the first methodology approved. We have multiple tools approved. Again, on the capacity building, a good amount of activity is going to happen in the Article 6.4 as well. After finishing this presentation of mine, I will send you the learning series which we have developed specifically towards helping how the countries can operationalize Article 6.4 in the respective country. On the other subcomponent of the Article 6, which is the Article 6.8, the non-market approach, we have now the wider participation guidelines, we have the institutional setup guidance, we have the NMA platform, and the discussion forum is in place. Again, the capacity building is going to be taking a full amount of mobilization in the next years. So this is the overview about where do we stand in Article 6 after good amount of 9 years of negotiation, and now how we are heading towards the implementation. So now getting into the Article 6 reporting. Article 6 reporting sounds to be very easy, but this is the landscape of how it is going to happen. So there are like three important layers when we are talking about the climate action, which is like if we go in the reverse, like we have the NDC. So every country have submitted their NDC, and we have the first GST1 in Dubai and the next GST1, which is going to happen 2 years or 3 years from now. So before we go there, every NDC, they have a requirement to submit the BTR. And then the BTR will have various components. One of the component of the BTR is that how Article 6 or the cooperative approaches are getting facilitating or facilitating the host party or the receiving party in terms of the emission reduction through cooperative approaches. This is the kind of interlinkages between Article 6 and the NDC. Like when we are speaking about the NDC, we have the cooperative approaches. The cooperative approaches delivers ITMOs. So ITMOs, if some of the colleagues who are not aware about ITMOs, ITMOs is nothing but the authorized mitigation outcome from a country, which is procured by a B country towards its NDC implementation. So that's the overview of it. So this slide is giving the overview about how the important reporting elements are covered over the NDC period up to 2030. So we will have more deep dive in terms of how the reporting overview is done. A couple of things which before we go deep into the overview, I wanted to explain. One of the thing which Firia was also mentioning is on the CARP, which is nothing but the centralized accounting and reporting platform. So can you see the slide? Sorry, can you see the web page?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't take me wrong that I'm shifting from the slides to the presentation. Just that I wanted to make it a bit more interactive to the colleagues what we are speaking. So this is the CARP platform in the UNFCCC, which is going to be the base page for all the cooperative approaches. We will have a deep dive into how the page is structured, how the countries can take part in the cooperative approaches. So this gives the overview about where everything starts. So the real starting point of the cooperative approach starts from the page called CARP, Centralized Accounting and Reporting Platform, specifically for the Article 6.2. So now going back into the slides, like under the reporting, we have this is the overall architecture. All the reporting whichever we have, it gets linked into the CARP. Under the CARP, we have the Article 6 database, which is nothing but the list of cooperative approaches, whatever we have. This is what we call it as the Article 6 registry. With the Article 6 registry, we have the Article 6 technical expert review. Once the Article 6 is submitted, cooperative approaches are submitted, the technical expert review of the Article 6 review the intensity of the cooperative approach. They find the inconsistencies, etc., etc. And then it gets linked with the Article 13. So this is the kind of architecture how the reporting review is linked in the Article 6 and the Article 13. So now deep dive, what is there in terms of reporting under the Article 6.2. So if we have to put it as a kind of a layered approach, Kaltum, if I'm kind of going bit speed, please feel free to stop me. I'll make it slow. I have a small manufacturing defect that I speak fast. If I'm going fast, please correct me. I'll be happy to slow down. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay, Uma. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we have three levels of Article 6 reporting. The first one is the initial report. Second one is the annual report. Third one is a regular reporting. So how these three are linked, we have a very detailed guidance from the CMA after multiple years of negotiation on the deadlines when the report has to be submitted, what is the frequency of these reports are going to be submitted, what is the format in which the reports has to be submitted, and what are the elements which are going to be covered in these three important reporting structure. So when we have all these three reporting, it kinds of gives an overview on a country level that the emission reductions are taking place through n number of cooperative approaches. Those cooperative approaches fall into the point of getting into the BTR and then finally getting into the transparency. So that's the overview of a multi-layer Article 6 reporting. Let's put it like this: the initial report. So how it is happening, when it is happening, what is that reporting and where it is happening. So that's what in this slide, which I'm trying to present now. So the first one is the initial report. The initial report, nothing but it is like when a party decides that they would like to go to a cooperative approach. So then what they will be doing, they will first have to submit an initial report the moment when they decide that we are going to have a cooperative approach. And then when it has to be submitted before the first BTR or before the authorization of an ITMO. So authorization, we will have separate discussions over the next slides. And how we will submit this, we will be submitting it through the predetermined template, which we have as a Article 6 initial report template. This is what we have it here, the templates. So the templates here, the initial report template is nothing but a Word document. So the Word document gives the overview about how the, oh God, that's not going. Sorry, colleagues. Yeah, okay. So So the template is already agreed by the decision number 2 of the CMA 3. That gives an overview about what all the parameters which we will be going under the initial report, and where it will be submitted. It will be again submitted in the CARP. The CARP has the facility for the national focal points to get a user ID and password through which the initial reports are going to be submitted. Then comes the annual information. The annual information is nothing but an Excel sheet which is talking about the quantitative information related aspects of what is the cooperative approach, how many ITMOs are generated from my multiple cooperative approach which are there in the country, how many have been used towards the authorization towards the NDC or OIM, or how many has been used by the country towards the cancellation, and all the accompanying information when we are talking about the annual information. And this happens on annual basis, like every year by April 15th, this has to be submitted. Again, agreed electronic format is nothing but an Excel sheet. We have a clear guidance in the CMA 6, which is last COP. Which is talking about the overall how the Excel sheet is going to be. So a quick deep dive into the Excel sheet. Yeah, so this is the live example of Thailand agreed electronic format. So which provides an overview about how the cooperative approaches are being done from the for the year between 1st January to 31st December. So it's like a table which will be having the information about the cooperative approaches, authorizations, actions, holdings, and authorization entities. We will have a deep dive into that. So the reason why I'm showing these two documents is that it will give you an overview of how the reporting really happens. In the initial report is a Word document, the annual report is a Excel sheet, and then when we have all these two documents, now it gets into a BTR. I'll not cover more in detail on the BTR because Sid will be covering on that. So the regular information is nothing but a combination between qualitative and quantitative information specifically towards the Article 6.2 implementation, how it is implemented in the country. And we have a clear structured summary going into the CTF tables, very precisely table number 4 of the structured summary. So this is the overview of what, when, how, and where the reporting structures are there under the Article 6.2. So now deep dive into initial report. Initial report has four important components. One is the participation responsibilities, description of the party NDCs and the accounting information, and then followed by the cooperative approach. So initial report is nothing but a country before they it's like kind of a it's like a setting the baseline in about a country towards its emissions, and after that it is providing the information on a annual basis and then on a regular basis so that the starting point is fixed as per the initial report. So if you're talking about a country A, like a party A or country A, both are same. The party A has a cooperative approach 1, and in which they are giving the ITMOs to party B. The same party under the different cooperative approach is giving the ITMOs to another party. So that means the country has fixed the initial report, and then followed by they have to give an updated initial report because there is an initial report, and then followed by the country C is also coming in place, and then the country D is also coming in place. So you need to have three different three different cooperative approaches which have one initial report and two updated initial report. The party A, party B, C, D will give the respective reports which are specific to linking the party A, which is their first initial report. So that gives an overview about setting the baseline for the party A, B, C, and D. So now taking the example of party A, B, C, and D, we will be having the live examples of the first ITMOs which has been transferred from Thailand to Swiss. So this is what we are going to cover in the next slides. So going ahead again into the when the initial report will be submitted, it should be submitted before or no later than the authorization of the ITMOs, or practically in conjunction with the next BTR. So the next BTR, which is going to be submitted by the countries, are going to be in the next year. So before the next BTR, even if the countries they don't have an authorization, they are obliged to submit their initial report. And how, as I told you, it is going to be based on the reporting template as per the one which is there in the CARP, and it will be submitted through the CARP solution. So then comes the annual information. The annual information is nothing but the Excel sheet, which is the agreed electronic format, which has multiple components. So there we have, like, we can put it like on a two broad level. One is the actions, other one is the information which are provided to complement the actions or the users. The first one is that what is the mandatory information, which are like authorization of the ITMOs towards the NDC. So the next one is the authorization towards OIMP. Colleagues, are you aware of what is OIMP?
We
Or should
explained
I?
this yesterday during the Article 6
Okay.
session, but I don't know if there is anything not understood. Maybe we can ask, can explain again. But it's up to you, Kulthum, if you want to add.
Thanks.
It's actually a question for participants. Do we need any more clarification on the OIM or EMP? Is
OIMP.
that correct, Uma?
Yeah, it's OIMP. OIMP is the
Yeah.
right word.
Yeah.
Okay, just for the understanding of the colleagues, I'll just make a short deep dive into what is NDC and what is the OIMP. Uh, Countries, when they decided to have their emission reductions with the conditional versus the unconditional targets, it's purely towards the respective countries' sovereign emission reduction targets or the climate action. So, in addition to the country level activities, there are international programs which are related with CORSIA, which is specifically towards the aviation sector. Under the aviation sector, there is no geographical boundary of the emissions which happen. So, the ICAO, International Aviation Control Authority, they have come up with a scheme called COSIA, which also accept emission reductions as per the emission trading scheme. But those emission reductions which are going to be accepted under COSIA requires authorization. So COSIA is nothing but the other international mitigation programs. So, or purposes. So COSIA is one of them. We all expected that there will be something coming up from the shipping sector as well, but the negotiations are still underway. Sorry. Once we have guidance from the shipping sector, we can also call that as other international mitigation purposes. So when a country pursue a cooperative approach, they authorize their emission reductions. So it could be used for an NDC or it could be used for a OMP. And then that has the first transfer. First transfer is nothing but the first moment when the emission reductions are transferred, and then what is transferred if they are occurring also, like under the Paris regime, a country can be a buyer also, a country can be a seller also. Like in case if the country is buying the emission reductions, it will be taken into the annual information as a acquisition, and then holdings. If there is anything which got cancelled specifically towards their own NDC targets, and then voluntary cancellation, there are some of the cases, the countries when they pursue the cooperative approach, they also cancel some of the credits which could be used towards the overall mitigation goals towards the cooperative approaches process, and then some of the credits going to be used towards their own NDC. So these are the actions which gets very much reflected in the agreed electronic format through the 5 different tables which we have, and then the complementary information which are very much related to these what is the cooperative approach which we have, what are the sectors which we are covering, what are the activities under the cooperative approaches which we are having. So who is the entity who is procuring it, whether it is from the OEM or from the NDC? What is the vintage year of my emissions? Because if I have a emission reduction which is coming from 2024, like for example, before I submit my first agreed electronic format, so I need to report it in the 2026, like 2 years before that also. Then who is the first transferring party? Unique identifier. Unique identifier is nothing but it is the real number of the ITMOs which is getting issued by a country. So there is a guidance from the CMA. what should be the identification factor, so that this identification factor is used across globally, so that there is no double counting or double accounting is happening. So that's the guidance, and that's the overview about how the annual information works. So now on the regular information, initial report is nothing but setting the basis, and then we have the annual information. So 2 years of annual information gets culminated into the regular information, which is getting part into the BTR. Again, I'm not going to go detail into this, but what it is getting covered is the specifically towards the details about the cooperative approaches, the information about the cooperative approaches, and it provides the information more precisely on what is the ITMOs which got utilized towards the climate action, or or the cooperative approaches from party A to party B, or party A again to party C, or party A to party D, through my different cooperative approaches. All those informations gets uh, included in there, a kind of a balance of a balance sheet of the country towards going towards the cooperative approaches. Again, when it is going to be submitted, someone saying something? Okay. So, so when it is going to be submitted again, it's not later than the 31st December of a relevant year, or it goes along with the BTR of every 2 years. So that's the overall process of the reporting structure under Article 6. So now where it starts, it all starts with the CARP again, as I mentioned. So if we go to the CARP again, so this is the overview about the CARP. So the submission portal here, if you go there, you will, I don't have the access to it. It will be primarily towards the NFPs. Once we have the access, you can go to the templates and you can submit the documents. And what it covers is the reports. The reports are nothing but the current initial reports, whatever we have. We have what is the regular information which has been submitted. We have the annual information reports which has been submitted by the various countries. So that's the overview about how the CARP is structured. So you get a good amount of information about the authorizations. You get the information about the common nomenclature, which is nothing but the rules and regulations, and then FAQ specific to Article 6.2. So that's the overview about CARP. So as of now, we have around 16 initial reports which has been submitted. Uh, so the detailed template of the initial report is nothing but it's a CMA approved or COP approved template which has multiple sections. So a deep dive towards the first initial report which has been submitted by Swiss. One second. Thank you. So the part one, part two, and part three is primarily talking about the responsibilities of the country, the participation responsibilities, and it talks about the parties NDC, and then the accounting information, how the information is accounted. And then if you have a, cooperative approach, then all the cooperative approach are going to be linked in the section number 4. Like in the case of the Swiss, the one which they have submitted 2 years before, they have listed the cooperative approaches which they have with Ghana, Thailand, and Vanuatu. We will be having a deep dive into the CA3, which is the cooperative approach which supplied the first international transfer mitigation outcomes from e-bus program in Bangkok. So all these informations collectively gets the baseline set for Swiss, specifically towards the participation under the Article 6. So when we go deep dive again into the various sections, the first section A, which is nothing but it is talking about the information about the parties Paris Agreement related thing. Like for example, Swiss has ratified the Paris Agreement on October 6, 2017, and still they are continuing to be a party for it. So the part B is nothing but about when is the latest NDC which has been submitted, how the NDCs are linked towards the NDC registry. So this second one talks about the Switzerland has already submitted the latest version of their updated NDC in 17th December 2021. When you will be submitting the initial report after your NDC 3.0. So this information will be replaced with the NDC 3.0. So now on the component number three, which is the how the ITMOs are going to be used towards the authorizing parameter. So authorizing is nothing but you have the emission reductions, which we call it as a mitigation outcomes, and how it's going to be authorized. Here, I presume most of the country who are there in the webinar, they are on the sell side. So when we are talking from the sell side, like the respective ministry has to come up with a process in which the emission reductions are authorized. Authorization itself, it's a separate topic. So when the country says that I'm going to follow a method to authorize, and that method specific to the cooperative approach has to be presented in this. So here in the case of the Swiss, specific to the Ghana initial report, specific to the Swiss initial report, they have taken the abstract from the Ghana initial report, which says that the Ministry of Environment, MESTI of the Ghana, which is the national entity towards authorizing the ITMOs, will provide the authorization as per the procedures. So we cannot have the authorization fully elaborated here. So the countries, when they work, they have a dedicated process in which the framework of authorization happens and what is the fees, what is the structure. So that corresponding information comes in the part C. And then you have other related informations going on in the initial report, which gives the benchmark setting for the country. So now getting into the annual information, as of now, we have four countries which have submitted the annual information. I have chosen the Thailand as the example because that's the first most transaction between Swiss and Thailand. And in fact, that's the world's first transaction also. A deep dive towards what is the content which we have under the agreed electronic format. Agreed electronic format is nothing but, as I told you, in this Excel sheet. So it's the five tables which we have: table 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The summary of the information is that it's an overview about all the fields which we have in the multiple tables which we have. On a whole, we have around 94 parameters which the country has to be aware of what they are doing when the cooperative approaches are done. Uh, Table 1, which is talking about the party. If we have to have a deep dive of Thailand is the TH, and this is the first version of their agreed electronic format or the annual information report. And the reporting period is for 2023 to 2024. And then the date of submission, which is not there now. The review of the initial report, if they have anything, this information will come from there. And what is their first year of their NDC period? The first year of their NDC period is 2021, and then the last year of the NDC period is 2030. So this is like purely country specific information which keeps changing as per the country related NDC period starting on the end date. Then we have the authorization. So here we are talking about the cooperative approach 3. So that's what, as I mentioned, in the initial report of Swiss, they have mentioned CA003. If I go back into that, yeah, this is what it is. CA003, which gets listed in the agreed electronic format of Thailand. So this is the CA003, which is the cooperative approach, and this is the version 1. And they have authorized a maximum of 500 tons of CO2, and the metric is GHG. And then it is coming from the sector transportation. Activity type is the transport, and which is used for NDC. Let us assume that if this is used towards CORSIA, here it will be OM. And the authorized other party is CH, obviously, which is the Swiss. And then what is the authorized time frame? The authorized time frame is from 1st October to 20th, no, sorry, 2030. So this keeps going over the field wherever we need to have it. Then the actions is that, as I mentioned, this is the first transfer which has been done. So based on all the 500,000 tons of emission reductions, this is the authorization ID. And then you have the first transferring party. First transferring party is the Thai, and then where the registry, it is the Thai registry. This is the ID of the respective transaction, first transfer which happened. So like, for example, the authorization date is of 1st December 2023. Uh, it is the 12th January 2023. Likewise, the second transaction happened on 13th December 2024. So this is the way mm, the agreed electronic format has been populated, and then here you can see the acquiring party, which is the which is the Swiss, and then what it is used for. This is used for WIME. No, this is not used for WIME. That's why it is not applicable. So this is used towards the NDC, how it is used towards the NDC, and then finally more information about the first transfer, additional explanatory information, and then holdings after they have given the 500,000. If they have anything left over, they will be talking about here, since there is no information, so that's why it's empty. And then finally the authorizing entities. The authorizing entity in the one, like for example, this is the company which is the Energy Absolute company, which is the entity which is uh, generating the emission reductions, and this is the entity carbon coordinating managing entity, that is the entity which is managing the rules and regulations in the country. So that gives the overview about how the initial report, sorry, the agreed electronic format or the annual information report is maintained in the country. So I don't want to go again deep into this because we have used the example. This is what I have explained with the Excel sheet with regards to how the first ITMOs which has been transferred from Thailand to Swiss from a real project, which is the Bangkok e-bus program. So now comes the regular information. Thailand has not submitted their regular information till now, but we have the example of Zimbabwe, which we will be having a deep dive into this. So again, the BTR has the information, which is the regular information, which is a template agreed by the COP. We have the template, which is again coming from the CARP. Here, if you go, you can find the templates. So this is the template for the regular information, which is based on the CMA decision number 2, CMA 3 decision number 2. So that's the way it works. So detailed template which we have, not going more into this. This is the example of Zimbabwe. As of now, Zimbabwe has two cooperative approaches. Two LOAs. We call it as LOA is a letter of authorization, and every LOA has a number. One is 009, other one is 0013. So this first section will be talking about the general information about the country. For example, if you're from Sudan, you will be talking about the Sudan example country, and then what is your NDC period, what is the report number, what's the type of the report, version, etc., etc. And then the technical report will be talking about what is the cooperative approach, how the cooperative approach are used, and then a section specifically mentioning about how the cooperative approach specifically towards the emission reductions are correspondingly adjusted, and what is the numbers of correspondingly adjusted credits. And again, this is the real number which has been used towards it. In the past, I was mentioning that you have the um, unique identifier. The unique identifier is nothing but the number of the ITMOs which is issued. Like for example, this is Zimbabwe, and this is the cooperative approach 11. And again, Zimbabwe, this is the gold standard. And these are the number of the credits which has been issued. And this is the year in which it is corresponding to. And this is the number of the number which is generated by the country. And then it keeps going on to the end of the lot, this of very serial number lot. And then this gets tracked in the structured summary table number 4 of the CTF. And this has the information about what's the annual quantity of the ITMOS which has been transferred, what is the quantity which has been used towards the NDC, the same thing if it is going towards used for the OM. So that sort of information we keep tracking it under the structured table, and I would be taking it here, and then Sid will take it from here. So that's the overview about how a country, when they consider Article 6.2 with multiple other independent carbon crediting mechanisms. The most another component of the Article 6, which is the Article 6.4, if a country develops the project under the PACM or Article 6.4, it generates Article 6.4 ERs. Upon authorization, it gets into the point like Article 6.4 ERs are turned into ITMOs. The same process is needed as per the Article 6.2 guidance, but the difference is that when the country uses Article 6.4, which is PACM, there is a good amount of easiness for the country on the reporting process. Like if a country is using independent crediting standards like X, Y, Z, so we have the country HP1. The HP1 is supplying credits to three different cooperative approaches. CA was 0101, CA 0102, CA 0105. So that means the host party one, they have to submit three initial reports, and then the using party again they are submitting, they are further transferring the credits to the another host party. So that means, so the host party one, they have to submit three initial reports and then three updated initial reports. So all this gets easy or nullified in the process of PACM, because PACM has the inbuilt tracking of all the all the emission reductions which is going on, because PACM registry and the international registry, it's all controlled universally by the UNFCCC. That gives the easiness of reporting for the countries. So that's the overview of how Article 6.2 reporting happens, Article 6.4 reporting happens, and then what's the next for the countries. What's next is that the countries now, we are talking about reporting, but based on our understanding and learning, there are a lot of things has to be done in the country. We from RCC, MENA, South Asia, also GGI support various countries towards understanding what is their current needs, specifically towards the technicalities or towards their reporting needs. We are more than happy to support. And one of the important mandate of RCC MENA South Asia is that we help the countries towards building the capacities. So that's what beginning of my presentation, as I mentioned, we have our regional workshop specifically for the countries in Oman. Any colleagues from Algeria, Syria, or uh, I forgot, Palestine. If they have not registered, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be happy to register you. And then we have to have an understanding of what is Article 6.2, what is Article 6.4, how both are interrelated. That will facilitate a major chunk of reporting easiness, that will facilitate a major chunk of market integrity, so that a well sophisticated digital platform for towards the MRV can be created. So we all speak about Article 6 on a country level, but the most important component or the most important action which is going to be taken on the ground is going to be the private sector. So the private sector, they have to be sensitized in every country so that they can leverage the Article 6 as a tool, and they can develop mitigation activities in their respective country. So the most important thing I always would like to conclude any of my presentation is that when we are talking about Article 6, there has to be a clarity which has to be in place. What is my NDC? When I'm saying the word my, what is a country NDC? And what is my unconditional targets? What is my conditional target? Because when the country has this clarity, so that means it passes a very clear signal to the private sector, saying that these are the sectors in which we means the country is ready to authorize its credits, which can be used for used by a purchasing country towards their NDC or OIM. So that sort of a clarity is the most important thing which the countries they have to really come up with. With that, I finish my session. In case of any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Over to you, Kiltum or Frio. Thank you, colleagues.
Thanks for that, Uma. It's always great, I think, as well. Like it's Article 6 is only something that I myself am learning about more this year. So I find these webinar series to be really helpful. So like Uma said, we have around 10 minutes, I think, for any questions. I don't see any on the meeting chat, but of course, if anyone has any questions and they don't feel comfortable raising their hand or speaking up, you can put them into the meeting chat as well. And yeah, of course, the presentation and all the materials from yesterday and today will be shared along with the recordings of the session as well. But I don't see any hands coming up, so just in the interest of time and to not, to not keep everyone waiting, I will hand over to Sid, who will be covering the presentation on the Article 6 and the BTRs. So thank you again, Uma, and yeah, I saw that, Natalia. We need at least 10 minutes to digest all the presented information. It makes sense. It makes
Article
sense.
6, sorry to interrupt you, Firia. Article 6 itself, it's a complicated topic, and reporting
Yeah.
is one of the, sorry to use the word, any of my colleagues are not there. It's the boring subject. Yeah. But we need to, but the countries, jokes apart, but the countries, they have to be like well versed with what they are reporting. I would not go into the negative things which has happened in terms of the inconsistencies, or whatever it's been recorded in the technical expert review of the cooperative approaches which we have. But it's end of the day, it's the sovereign name which is at stake. So one has to really look upon into the reporting as one of the very critical element. With that, now I will request colleague of Situ.
Mhm. So
Over to
just to
you.
clarify one thing, we have a quiz by the end and we need a winner. So try to take advantage from our speakers and experts.
They will get 10 ITMOs.
Yeah.
Hi. Hope you guys can see me and hear me.
Yeah, we can see and hear you, Sid.
Thank you so much. I'm just trying to make sure my like for some reason my device decided to mess with my formatting. If you give me just a second's time, I'm just trying to figure out how to SSH. And yeah, sorry. Okay. Then you guys have to just kind of like kindly excuse my largely haphazard or haphazard looking or inconsistently formatted ones, because for some reason all my formatting went all right. Okay. With that said, thank you so much again for all the colleagues to join. Let me just, I don't know if it will allow me to present to the meeting. If it allows me, it's great. Otherwise, no, it's not. So what I'll do is just share my screen. And yeah, I think this is one. I guess everyone can see me. See this?
Yeah, we can see.
Marvelous. Thank you. Okay, so for some reason all my formatting went awry, so you please have to excuse me with my bare bones approach. Okay, so obviously this is also a bit difficult to get back from all the intensive session that Uma had, and also what yesterday we talked about all the key key issues of what ITMOs are, what BT are, what reporting, and we also kind of explored a little bit about how the institutional arrangements can be built. There's a bit of knowledge, etc. And one thing that I wanted to add yesterday, but there was not enough time, was that GJ is also working in the region to create this kind of knowledge products, especially that which is rooted and based in the Arabic language. So over the coming couple of years, we are pulling in resources to create this kind of knowledge base that is available to a wider audience. We understand that kind of information is available, but then the lessons that we are learning is the capacity is kind of getting restricted to understanding, and that means that having this kind of information in the other languages is we're very hopeful. And as Kaltum kindly Well, Sad, and even me and Massive had the same discussion before the sessions, that anything that's presented in the language that is accessible and digestible to the participants would be well received. And so going forward, or at least hopefully by the next years, we will have some additional material that is in Arabic language for consumption. With that said, I will just quickly touch upon what we want to understand here. And this is basically the key decisions. And I know we are kind of going back and forth in the content that we are covering between the speakers. But then it's also good to take a step back always to see what we are doing and why we are doing it. And fortunately, we do have quite a bit of knowledge-based resources available online. And I think yesterday I said, and today I'll just repeat that all of this information, along with the slides, also the excellent amount of information that is on these topics that is available online, we will link it. So, and there's also, again, point out and thanks and acknowledgements, etc., to the SPARC 6 team and the carbon transaction facility team at GGI who have been working quite a bit on creating these kind of knowledge products as well. So very quickly looking at key decisions. So what I've done is there are a few common elements of reporting when it comes to 6.2 and 6.4. So we have looked at Uma's presentation on what the content of it and where it was. And here is kind of segue into how and where that reporting comes in. So we've seen all the different formats in which it's done. And today I'm going to cover kind of these decisions and will walk us through a couple of examples. And I think this is where colleagues who would like to get their hands down and dirty with data will or I'm hoping that they'll find it quite interesting. So obviously we have a bit of history of how this reporting etc. has also progressed. So we have like from CMA 1, 2, and 3, there were quite a bit of discussions, and as Uma was saying, it's almost took us a decade to reach the place where we are, and also to going back to yesterday's discussion of how the entire Paris Agreement reporting and all the ETF is built upon the previous experiences. So that is kind of linked to how these decisions, discussions, etc., have been happening over several years. Now, there are few distinctive decisions which specifically target 6.2 and 6.4. And so I'm going to talk specifically on what kind of information that has to be reported under 6.2. So here we see especially linking on what the tracking are. And again, as I said, there are links here. Let me put laser pointer. So there are links here that will be included in the in both the presentation as well as other places where you can find that information, and also the UNFCCC pages where you will get that. So there are now there's now very clear-cut guidance on what a tracking of information is, and there's quite a bit of information on what the technical expert review is. I'm also very quickly going to cover those aspects. So again, as Uma said, this is a little bit too deep, and you can go into any of these rabbit holes and spend hours and hours and days together on it. And then we also have the outlines of what the technical aspect reviews will cover and what not cover. And there were also quite key decisions on the kind of training and technical experts and training needs and trainings that is being provided by the Secretariat as qualifying. And the one thing that I also wanted to add here is that previously that kind of training material was kind of restricted. But now it is pretty much publicly available. You, I, and everyone can go through it. What is different, obviously, is who goes through that and whether or not they get to qualify the examination and participate in the review process, etc. So that still remains that remains available to experts who are nominated to the UNFCCC roster. and I keep plugging it in because that's part of my old team. So that is still there. Only those experts who participate or cleared these exams can participate, whereas the material in itself is available to the general public. So you're quite welcome to go through those training materials. Uh, and yeah, and especially here, I just wanted to talk about like what are the key things that we want in the BTR report in itself, and BTR report and the especially the common tabular formats, which again I'm going to very quickly cover. So, it should really include the process of authorization, transparency of information, application of first transfer, and the way in which the reporting formats are. And there are some automated consistency checks that are being implemented, and there are mechanisms for addressing inconsistencies, as well as, ultimately the kind of flexibility that is available to the countries that want it, and also guidance on tracking, registry interoperability, and additional functionality. There are actual decisions underpinning all these activities, and it is quite helpful to go back and look at these when we have confusion or when we find a little bit of clarity or a junction where we don't know which way to go. And then similarly 6.4, although my next slide will not cover too much of 6.4 because again there is a very limited time that we can cover all of these. So if we look, there are similar rules under the modalities, procedures, and guidelines, and on what the 6.4 mechanism is, and there's also very clear-cut guidance on how the CDM to Article 6 transitioning is. Perhaps this is a good time to link back to yesterday's question. Uma, this is more to you, and maybe you can also throw a little bit more light because our information is perhaps not as updated as the RCC's is. That what are the conditions or what are the qualifying criteria for CDM projects to transitioning to an Article 6.4 system? So we knew that yesterday when we attempted our first response, we talked about how there is definitely a requirement for those project implementation to be after 2021 because that's where the NDCs are, but those are the timeframes that we were looking at least in terms of implementation. But perhaps the RCC would have a more pertinent and clear-cut guidance and answer to that. So if you can please find time, kindly do respond in the chat box, and I think we will get it to the gentleman who's asking. I think it was Mr. Amar. I don't know if he is in the meeting today. But I'm sure he and every one of us will be quite intrigued to look at the answer. So obviously there are also some very good rules and very clear-cut guidance on sorry, Uma, you have your hands up. Sorry, please.
Thank you, Sid. Instead of me typing in the chat, I thought, okay, I'll just take 2 minutes of your time.
Yeah, please.
Apologies. Yeah. So specific to the CDM, I'm happy because one of the good guidance which has come from the COP is that you have like 3 levels of deadlines. Number one deadline was 31st December 2023. That's the deadline. The CDM projects, they should request for transition from CDM to 6.4. So
Okay.
anyhow, that's now missed. If you have a CDM project which you have not done, the bus is gone. The second deadline is that the stakeholder consultation, which is already cleared. So that is also the point. The third deadline is that the host party approval for transiting the CDM projects from CDM to 6.4. Every DNA, they have to give a concern that the respective CDM project in the country can move from CDM to 6.4. The deadline was 31st December 2025, but now in this COP, it is extended to 31st December 30th June 2026. So that means we have 6 more months of breather. As far as I know, we work on the CDM projects across the region. Almost all the MENA related countries, except one or two, they have not submitted their concern. We are in close contact, but I think the colleagues from that country are not there in today's call. But just I'm trying to take the advantage of these 2 minutes to explain. We have 6 more months in case if the project has to be moved from CDM to 6.4, provided the first two deadlines are met. So
Okay.
that's the only thing which I wanted to share
So
here.
basically, the project should have been registered by 2023, December 31st.
No,
That
no,
was the
no,
first
no.
no.
Okay. So now let's go to the point number 0 then. A CDM project which has a valid crediting period on 1st January 2021 are eligible to be moved from CDM to 6.4. If they have that validity, so that means the project, it should be a registered CDM project, and the crediting period should be, there should be some sort of a crediting period left over from 1st January 2021, which is the NDC period, right? So
All right. Okay.
the start of the NDC period, there the CDM project
Should
should
have
have the
been still,
valid crediting
yeah.
period. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a second crediting period or something that should still have been overlapping. So there was some
Yeah,
crediting period, a bit of it that it goes beyond 21. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, that's it from my side. Over to you, Sid. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully, Mr. Amar gets the time to review either the recording or the notes that will come from it. Thank you. Thank you, Ma. So yeah, so 6.4, there's very clear-cut guidance, etc. And what I want to really point out as like there are the one thing that kind of helps, and this is where the CDM methodologies and all the knowledge base that we have created is quite critical and essential. Because ultimately, we'll see that there's I'm going to cover these key concepts as well in a little bit more detail. But then there's a very clear-cut understanding that is required by all the participants and all the countries on what are the methodologies, what is authorization and what is not authorization, what is applicable, what is approval, and all of these key concepts have to be still agreed upon or are well understood before they're properly implemented. And I think while the colleagues can look at these key decisions later, very quickly want to cover these key concepts because I think this is very essential. And I think Uma has also kind of touched upon these that will come up. First and foremost, this is the key aspect, which is the GHG inventory and the NDC BAU. So here, what we have again seen is the greenhouse gas inventory is basically a historical review. And one of the best examples that I found, again, I'm sure there are colleagues who have heard this example previously, is that if we were to ask ourselves how much money we spent 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or 5 years ago on our groceries, there would not be a simple way in which we get that information. We would then have to go back, look at our receipts or maybe our bank statements, if at all we've kept them even, and see what it was. And then obviously we have a very clear understanding of what the greenhouse gas inventory is, where our expenses are, because we know what the currency of that is. So either we've spent on US dollars or AED or any other equivalent currencies that we've spent on. Then we dig up that information and we see it. But a very simple exercise can indicate that it is not very clear cut. And it's also quite highly uncertain because we keep looking back at old data and trying to estimate what is the total. For example, we may at best dig up a complete bank statement which says that this is the quantity of money, this is the amount of money that you spent in a particular location or a particular grocery store, but we would not have the breakup of it. And that is also quite essential to understand what those grocery bills were. Now we know, and now bringing it back to the IPCC, IPCC came up with the kind of 2006 guidelines, which said this is how you account for your emissions at the national level. This is how you account for sectoral and subsectoral categories and emissions, and you have the activity data, etc. Everything which says that this is how your emissions have been. So what it essentially helps is that when you have been doing it very consistently over the last few years, it helps you identify the trends. And so, for this sector, this is a sector, and For example, there is there's one South American country, Guyana, which had started off its oil exploration quite recently. So it very clearly knew that the country knew that their energy sector emissions would be higher. So that's where the emissions trajectories and that's where your what do you call projections coming. You know that for this sector, this is how your emissions are going to look like. And this is part of the information that has to be reported in the BTR. And now when you look at the NDC and the difference between these two is that for the greenhouse gas inventory, all gases kind of are covered. And obviously understand the flexibility, all gases are covered. Now, the minute you look at the NDC, only those greenhouse gases where we have a specific action are covered under the NDC. So it means, for example, a country has decided that it doesn't have any actions that are reducing its methane emissions. So it can very well say that its primary target gas, a primary target category, etc., is only the CO2 equivalents and the energy and IPPU sector. So it means that within the energy and within the IPPU sectors categories, there are specific actions that the country is undertaking, either policies, measures, actions, or whatever it is, or technologies that is implementing that is helping the country reduce those emissions, and the calculations, estimations, etc., and even the carbon pool and sink that is targeted is only CO2. Whereas your inventory, because if it by default contains waste sector, it would definitely have methane emissions as well. So there is that very clear distinction that has to be understood. And now when we are talking about NDC BAU emissions, these are very similar to the greenhouse gas inventory, but are different as well, slightly different. Because as I said, like the trend analysis will say this sectors is where the emissions are going to look like. However, if you look at the NDC actions, your NDC BAU or a very specific actions BAU, I would say that's would be different. So what's going to happen is that we're going to talk about what the future emissions are going to look like as what a greenhouse gas inventory trajectory would look like. But within the BAU scenario that you talk about, or counterfactual or a hypothetical scenario you talk about, you say like, if I don't implement this project, this is where my emissions would look like. And if I do implement the project, this is where the emissions would be reduced, and these are my pathways. So these are slightly similar but distinct concepts that have to be very clearly understood. And reporting, there's also slight difference because it's again looks at T-2, which means like if we are reporting 2026, at least 2024 information has to be reported, or at best 2023, because T-2 and T-3 in terms of flexibilities. But the greenhouse gas inventory is part of the NC or BTR or as a separate national inventory document, NID. Whereas the NDC information and the BAU, etc., most prominently gets featured in the NDC and in the BTR. So it's not part of the GG inventory. So this is where the subtle difference and understanding that needs to come from. Then we can look at the NDC targets themselves. And this is where I was saying about like having a single, multi, relative, and absolute target. These are all very, very critical and essential aspects to look at. Now, when we say it's a single year NDC, I mean, like it's not an exact single year, but then or single year NDC or an yearly NDC that we talk about. It means like for example, the BAU emissions for that sector, or sorry, for that category or for that country that is projected would be as 65 gigagrams, for example. And a relative target would be that if, say, we say 10% of the BAU emissions will be reduced, and it means that 6.5 gigagrams of CO2e, that is equivalent calculated, is relative. So in case the BAU emissions are not 65, they're only 63, then the target gets correspondingly reduced to 6.3. Or if the BAU emissions get higher, and it's 68 that it is actually calculated, then the target becomes 6.8, and it changes relative to how our BAU emissions are. Whereas the absolute target, and I forgot to add one more, even relative terms, like for example from the region we have two couple of very good examples where the relative target is framed as relative to 1 year's emission. So for example, in 2021 this was my greenhouse gas inventory, these are my emissions. So relative to my X, I have taken a certain amount of emissions and I'm committing to reduce those emissions by 2030 or 2040 or whichever year that we are targeting, which means, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, that can be spread or that can be a 1 year single year's target. So this is what we talk about. So in one specific year, 6.5 gigagrams of CO2e, we can do it. And this is where the relative terms and multi-year NDC target comes up. So we could also say, going by the same example, that if we assume that the BA emissions projected for each year are 65, 66, 66, then the relative target would keep on changing from 10% to each year. So this is 6.5, 6.6, 6.7. This would obviously, again, as I said, like previously, if the value changes, the BAU emissions value changes, the related target would also change. And what I mean is that we could also do this as, let's say, if we add all of these up, it's about 19.12 or something, 19.8. So what it would mean is that we can say that we want to reduce 19.8 gigagrams by 2028. Now that 19.8 can be distributed as 6.5, 6.6, 6.7 this way, or if we end up reducing, say, 7 gigagrams in 2026, then the remaining 12 gigagrams can be split between 6 and 6, the other 2 years. So that is where a multi-year target or multi-year NDC can also come. And this is also a little bit important to understand because that kind of frames how we estimate and how we calculate our own NDC achievements and how we track those specific NDC achievements, and specifically how we use our ITMOs to achieve those or like reach those targets. And similarly, as I said, like this is the absolute target where you have the same BAU emissions, but then these are standalone targets. So they're not related to the BAU. They don't change with the BAU, and irrespective of whether the BAU is 65, 66, 68, or even 40, it doesn't matter what the BAU emissions are going to look like. Our absolute target would say that we will reduce those emissions by that time. And you can also frame that absolute target as a relative one, relative to the initial year reference year that we're talking. So in 2021, this is my number, and I will reach that 2040 target, irrespective of what my BAU emissions are, what my changes to the BAU are. And this becomes quite a critical aspect to understand. Another aspect that we wanted to cover was on the conditionality and unconditionality of the targets. So again, I think Uma and even Nasef and we touched yesterday on what these are and why these are critical. And I'm sure all the colleagues have now a pretty rudimentary understanding of these, but then it was good to go back to this. So you have the unconditionality of the ones, like where the country is committing to achieve them with their own resources, so they don't require. So it's kind of, and our NDC experience or preparing the NDC experience over the last couple of times has indicated that countries are doing quite a bit of work. And what happens is that often there are other ministries, other departments, and other entities who are implementing it, but they don't necessarily frame it as a climate action. So they don't necessarily do it as something that they're doing to reduce emissions. However, similar to what we touched yesterday, that people and entities are not going out to do 50 tons of emissions. They are not setting out to do that. The emissions are a byproduct of the way in which entities act, the business as usual scenario. People keep doing what they're doing. The emissions and the negative impacts are a effect of that. What they can also do, either because they have other benefits or for whatever reason, they're also implementing actions which help in reducing those emissions. And those are also very much part of the NDCs because they are contributing to reduce emissions. They are moving away from this. Now, this is where the CDM 6.4 and 6.2 kind of diverge, because for 6.4, similar to CDM requirements, that more conscious decision, that active pursuit of reducing emissions, and that active pursuit of saying that they are doing it only because they have these environmental benefits, especially carbon benefits, are a mandatory requirement for 6.4, similar to what the CDM was, what the prior consideration was, what all of those systems that the new mechanism has put in place, which are again more or less a continuation or similar to what the CDM had done. Now, what happens is there's also another point which is on the policies of it, and I think again we touched upon it yesterday, where the country could be implementing policies where you have several projects, independent entities who are implementing that as a part of it. And although those entities may not be taking unilateral action, because there is a country level policy that is directing them to do it in that direction, those become part of the NDC actions. And those are all things that the country is doing with its own resources, and they become part of the unconditional ones. The conditional ones are the one step more, the extra efforts that are needed. And I think again yesterday the colleagues were talking about, like what is the qualifying criteria for conditionality. And these are all pretty much left to the countries to define what they want to do and how they want to frame it. Because conditionality is it technology transfer? Is it just pure capacity building that is needed? Or is it pure institutional arrangements that are required? Or is it just mobilization of finance? And even the finance in itself ultimately could be sourced internally. However, the enabling environment that has to be in place is not yet there, and that is kind of the barrier that is stopping. And I think yesterday Nasif talked briefly about the technological barrier, or common practice barrier. These were very well accepted and initially deployed CDM additionality qualifying criteria as well. So for 6.4, those become quite critical. Whereas for a more cooperative approach, or something that, or even one step ahead or one step back, which is when a country is deciding whether or not those are happening, or those decisions are made, is quite left to the country to decide. So anything that goes beyond their own unconditional target, anything that they would require this additional support in whichever form, becomes part of the conditional target. So again, as is they are contingent on financial aid, technology transfer, or capacity building from other nations. Any of these qualifying criteria could be the ones that say are conditional. Now, there's one more aspect that I want to cover, which is the fixed and the dynamic baselines. And again, very similar to the fixed and dynamic BAU, or sorry, target relative to target. What we have here is for a specific action, or for a specific project, or for a specific one, which is again either 6.2, 6.4, whichever way that goes in, that we have very two fundamental ones which play into how we account for it and how do we do the national accounting on not just the NDC but also the overall the BTR and the final emissions balance that has to be reported. Now, the fixed baseline is again not updated. We assume, like, for example, the CDM had the provision to fix for the accrediting period, you could have fixed the baseline. You'd say the grid emission factor, for example, you'd fix it and say, this is the quantity of energy that is being generated by this renewable energy project. And we are expecting that the grid emission factor would more or less stay the same. Although ultimately, depending on the other policies, etc., the grid emission factor will ultimately change. But when entities are making that decision, that is not given. So because they are making that decision in at that time with the information that is available, they have the flexibility to set it and say this will not change. But whereas the dynamic one is a relative one again, and that keeps changing. So if your time period is quite large, it's more than 10 years, or in the previous one it was 7 years and twice or three, like twice renewable crediting period, you may end up re-evaluating your baseline because there are sufficient changes that would happen over that time. And I don't know, Ma, if that same concept has been brought forward. Like, do we still have the fixed and renewable crediting periods under 6.4?
Yes, so we do have both fixed as well as the renew dynamic, not dynamic,
Renewable.
flexible crediting period. In the past, we had like two renewal, two times
7
renewal
into
crediting
7 into
period,
3.
seven into three, but now it is made into 5 into 3. So that
Oh,
means
yeah.
a project which is having to pursue under Article 6.4, maximum number of years it can generate emission reductions are for 15 years.
All right.
Earlier
Okay.
it was 21, but the fixed
20.
period, fixed crediting period stands the same, 10
10
years.
years. Oh, that's very
10
nice.
years.
So it depends on whether or not we expect the BAU emissions to change. So that's quite an interesting one. But anyway. With that said, I'm very quickly touching upon things that have been already covered, but then I thought it would be quite essential to, again, look at the definitions. And so here is like few critical ones, and that will cover next is the corresponding adjustments and ensuring that the mitigation outcomes are used within the same NDC implementation period as when they occurred. And this is quite critical. Or like how it is reported, like the initial report should be authorized and no later than authorization of ITMOs from a cooperative approach or where practical in the view of the participating party in conjunction with the next binary transparency vote, next BTR. And I think Uma gave very specific and pertinent examples of what that happens. And also the actual annual reports where this kind of information has to go in. And Uma has shown I think, but then I don't think there are any too many annual reports, but still, and this is my favorite part of going back into the analogy yesterday of a multitude, or what you call like a fractal of MRV systems, because ultimately that is what enables this consistent reporting and proper understanding of systems and facilitate that kind of information going through year in and year out. But I know again, like there's quite a bit of information that is being thrown. Do you want to take a quick minute to ask if any questions are there? Kelton, Freya?
I can't see any hands raised, but we have one question from FF. She's asking, does UNFCCC keep both objectives unconditional and conditional for the global stocktake, or only unconditional one? I
Ooh,
see
that's
that
interesting.
Uma sent more details, but it would be great if we can like give some indications.
Yeah.
That's good. Go ahead, Sid. Go ahead. It's a very
No,
complicated
no.
question. I would like to pass
So
it.
I think this is where the range. So we looked at the latest NDC review that the Secretariat produces every year now. And it's quite interesting because right now they are considering both, but then that gives them the range of overall emission reductions or overall emissions that will be avoided, reduced, etc. That gives. So if you look at the global stock take and review, there is a bottom and higher range. So they are just saying that this is what they're expecting with their unconditional and conditional. So for now, the accountancy takes both, but I think the realism and the analysis is more more based on the unconditional ones rather than the conditionality ones, because conditionalities, again, as you rightly pointed out, there is no guarantee. So for now, the analysis or more realistic achievement analysis is based on the unconditional components. Uma, anything else or?
No, I'm just trying to. There
Great.
is one
So
graph. There is one graph which clearly says what's the conditional target, what's the unconditional target. I'm trying to figure it out. In the NDC synthesis report, there is one section which is very precisely giving the information about how the conditional versus unconditional is there. I'm trying to get that exact thing so that that will help. Yeah, exactly. I got it. Yeah.
Okay. So while you try to do that, if there are no other questions, then we'll go to the next interesting question.
yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the ultimate one, which is accounting into the BTR and the numbers and especially so. Again, first, what do you call it, declaration is that this term acquiring country or acquiring party or host party or something, it keeps changing. So you might have to kindly excuse me if this is not exactly one, but then you can say this as the one who is buying it, who are buying the ITMOs. And so in this example that we'll look at, and we'll also look at a little bit more later. Like we have the BAU emissions projections. So as I said, like I tried hard to include the GAG inventory as well, but then the graph became way more complicated and I didn't think that it would convey the message very clearly. So I had to reduce it. So these are the BAU emissions. And here, I think I can, yeah. So these are the BAU emissions and PA projections, especially because, say, for example, it goes beyond. So, or I would say, like from here onwards, these are the projections, and these are the actual GAG inventory or the results of the inventory analysis until then. And let's say, and these are the actual ITMOs, Article 6 ITMOs that the country has acquired. And these are the results of its own NDC actions where it has achieved this much. And it's hoping to keep continuing implementing these, and this is what it will have. So ultimately, what it reports as an emission balance is this bit. Whereas for these years, it's going to be this bit. So this higher one, terms of what the country has acquired in terms of its ITMO. So maybe it has this target and say like this is where it wants to be, and it is not able to, and it's able to reach it. So again, we could also have a target that is way higher than this, which would mean that the country is falling short, but it is falling short only a little bit, or the gap is reduced between its target and what it achieves because of the ITMOs it purchases. And if you look at the same ones from a seller's perspective or what the country is doing, sorry, the T did not type out very clearly. The host party is, these are, it's BA projection. So it's expecting that its emissions would be on this way, on this trend. And these are the actions that the country has done. And again, it depends on what its NDC actions and what its NDC targets are. Maybe the country is able to meet them, or maybe the country is already able to meet its own NDC targets, or maybe it's not. However, irrespective of it, wherever it is wanting to raise the climate finance, and again, going back to the technical expert review that we touched yesterday, and I'll go a little bit more later, there is a lot of flexibility within the framework on what is permitted and what is not. And countries have every right to indicate what they want to do. The technical expert review cannot come and talk about the appropriateness of it or whether or not it is adequate to reach the NDC, and none of those subjective elements can be touched by the TER. So, and here, these are the bits that it has sold off. So it means that when it's actually reporting, this is the amount that it is deficit of. And so although it might have actually in reality reduced more emissions, because it has sold off this bit, this boat of emission reductions to the other country, because it raised the climate finance or for whatever reason, its actual emissions reported are lower than that. And so it has a greater emission balance to take care of. And here we can look at a very specific individual here, and this comes from the guide number 2. Nasif, correct me if I'm wrong. The guide number 2 from the Sparks, and I've slightly changed the terminology to bring in that clarity. So, for example, let's say that the BAU for the host country, its emissions are 100, and by taking its own domestic actions, it is reducing them by 20. And actually, it has also done more, and it is actually reduced 20. So it is the actual GHG emissions that is actually reduced. So it should have reported 40. However, the 20 ITMOs that it has done, it is decided to transfer. And so its goal, or where it says it would reach, is only 80. So it now, again, as I said, depends on what the actual ultimate NDC aim was, NDC goal was. It may achieve, might not achieve. Those are all a little bit outside the perspective. And when you look at the acquiring country, where its own BA emissions are 110, and through its domestic actions, it has also reduced 20. So actually, it's only at 90. However, because it has gone these extra, or it has raised these climate finance, or provided the climate finance, and has acquired those ITMOs, and now it can actually say that it has reached 70. And this becomes the actual emissions balance that it is reported by the acquiring country. So the 20 still are reduced. So if you look at the overall one, it would have been either 60 plus 90, which have been 150, or 70 plus 80. So it still is 150, but it depends on who is it. Now, ultimately, again, there is and I think, again, we touched upon it yesterday, it's a pretty subjective to say whether or not a country has met its domestic targets, or whether or not it is capable of doing it, and what is within the NDC, what are the actions that it has taken, and how many it has reduced, whether it's 20 or 40, or what it has done or what it has not done, are all pretty much left to the country. That the disclosure, or the analysis, and the review, and the critical analysis part of it would come from outside the Paris Agreement perspectives, because of course the stock take and others could call upon all countries to take more action, and even the overall mitigation goal is also an important concept that goes. But for now, the review, or the criticality of it comes from the call for action from the global, rather than from the Paris Agreement process. So the technical expert review, or the NDC synthesis report, nowhere else does the process penalize a country, because it's a non-punitive system. It doesn't go that way. However, there is, again, ultimately the call for all countries to take more urgent action of understanding the flexibilities that are available, and common but differentiated responsibilities, right? Like common goals but differentiated responsibilities for the countries. So that kind of call would still be remaining. So here again, like providing an indicative multi-year emissions trajectory, or even budget. So we could as well say, like, the country had, it's similar to the emissions trading systems, or cap and trade mechanism, or whichever similar concepts that have been applied in different frameworks and different ways. So maybe that the country, like the acquiring country, had a cap or a budget of 70. It says like this sector or this category had a goal of 70 gigagrams, but then it is not able to reach that level. it usually had 110, but then through its own actions, it has actually reduced them to 90, but it is not able to get the extra 20. And that by through acquiring the ITMOs, it's actually able to meet its target of 70 gigahertz. No, just let's very quickly look at a trajectory approach. So designed for multi-year targets and corresponding adjustments, CS, are applied annually based on the actual transfer and use of ITMOs against a defined emission trajectory. So Party A, host country, has an NDC target for 2030, and the transfer ITMOs to Party B annually from 21 to 2030. And because the target is only for 1 year, they cannot just adjust the target year without accounting for the interim transfers. And here we're calculating the rolling average of cumulative transfer. Like I know this is just the context setting, and this example actually looks at. So I'm making sure you can hear me and see me. So you have this net inventory, like it's metric tons or gigagrams or whichever way that you want to do it. You have 2021, 22, 23, 24. It goes on like this. So 50, 48, 47, 46, that's where the net inventory is. An annual transfer is what it is giving off. And now 10 plus 12, 22, 22 plus 8, 30, 30 plus 14 is 14. So years are 1. Now, indicative corresponding adjustment would be that you're averaging it. So 44 by, you can take as an average of it. So like 1 year, it's 10, it's 2. But so the cumulative ones are 22. So 22 by 2 is 11. And the next year, this is 30. So 30 by 3 is 10. So this is what you're averaging out. And the ultimately it's 44, and 44 by 11 is again 11. So it has varied. And so that would say 10, and it has 50 net inventory. So it's like what it has reduced, and 10, it comes down to 60, and it's 48 that it has reduced, and plus 11, so it's 59, and 47 it had reduced, and plus 10, 57, and so on and so forth. So based on that, it's able to correspondingly adjust the balance of what it has achieved in doing it. So this is what, so the 50, 48, 47, and you added 10, and that's what it brings down to. So this is just a pictorial way of indicating what it has achieved. Now, if we look at the averaging approach, let's say the design were single year targets, and like an average annual amount of ITMOs is calculated over the entire NDC period to determine the indicator adjustment. And then here, this is the same. Like we still have a multi-year target, Party B, and we define a trajectory of allowable emissions for each year. So this is the cap kind of or a budget, carbon budget that it has, and then corresponding adjustments applied directly to the year the transfer as occurred. So looking at it, like for example, it has 105 budget, but it has only 90, and it is sold of 10. It means that it has adjusted to 100. So it means that it is not too far off, or it's basically what it has. So actually, or it has an emission budget of 105. And actually it has or reduced or it has emitted only 90, and it has sold the remaining 10. So because it has already done 10, but then it had that gap of 15, which means of those 15, it has sold 10 emission credits, and by correspondingly adjusting it, it is claiming that it has just one or it has consumed 100 units of its allocated units. And that's why it's still on track, because it is less than the 105 that it had an actual emission budget for. But if you look at the next year, it had an emission budget of 102, and please note that it is also still reducing it, because as each year goes down, this is kind of what we talk about raising the ambition. It had an 85, but then it got ambitious and it sold 20, and it ended up with a 105 adjusted balance. So it missed its target, even if it's 3, because it sold more than what it could actually do. So that kind of where, although it's an entity level example, or this example is quite applicable or can be applied to both a single entity or a sector or even to a country, you would see that it is missing its target. Whereas for the next year, it's the same. Because it's sold off or whatever, it has actually bought the 5. So whereas it has 99 and it had already, I think it's 95. And because it bought 5, it kind of reduced to 90. And so that's why it is still within the limit, or which is less than. So the target, this is what it talks about. The target was 99. That was the allocated budget. And it actually did 95 and bought 5 more. So that's why its adjusted rates are 90. Whereas for the other one, it's 102 and it is above 105. So it went beyond, and this the other way around. It had a target of 105, and but because it sold 10, although it's like more than what it actually emitted, 90, it still is reaching 100, which is less. So these are a couple of examples that we looked at. And again, there, like we can look at hundreds and thousands of those examples, and each of these would be unique, and each of these could be quite complicated and detailed in itself to see. I know, again, I've thrown quite a bit of numbers here. So again, I want to pause and see if there are any questions, or if anyone would like to dissect it further, or we can go next.
Sid?
Yep. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So do we have any questions? Sorry. I don't know. I only heard my name.
No, I think there's no questions in the chat, so I think you're okay to carry on, Sid.
Right. No worries. Thank you. Okay, again, that's the challenge of numbers. They're either completely clear or have really flown over. So again, I would not blame anyone if this goes beyond, because this is something that is something that we need to keep going back and again and keep revisiting for every action, for every category, and for every time that we do this exercise. So I'll quickly touch upon the CTFs and the kind of information that has to be reported, and there are two distinct aspects, and this is what I think Uma gave very clear examples of. But then I'm just giving the other perspective of where it comes in BTR reporting, and what kind of information that is required through the MRV systems that you develop and systematize, which is that there are two aspects of it, which is like description of selector indicators, the CTF that has to go, and the tracking of the progress. So these two are the ones that are critical. Like, of course, there are other elements, but then these are the two critical pieces of information that go into the CTF. So you have one indicator, whether it's and this time around, when I talk about indicators, there is a subtle aspect of here. So ultimately, all the reporting, etc., there is an equivalence of tons of CO2e that has to be reported, because ultimately that's what it takes count of, right? Like that's what matters when we are trying to reduce or trying to track the overall results, because ultimately those are the ones that have especially the tons of CO2 equivalents that are reduced. That's the one that speaks directly, is the most important metric, and the one that is actually helping the environment get better. That said, not everything is straightforward or easily convertible into the tons of CO2 equivalents. And what we end up do is have a different indicator or different kind of indicator, and that includes, say, the tons of CO2, the overall megawatts or gigawatts of renewable energy, or we could have the number of power plants that have been set up, or the like the quantity of water that has been conserved from extracting from natural or from groundwater. So all of these are equal. And one of the best examples is, like, I'm hoping that you'll see it in the NGCs that have come from the region, is water. So, groundwater extraction, and especially in the MENA region, water production is kind of very intensive because we have quite a bit of energy dependence on that. And what it means that any bit, the two aspects of it, right? One is the amount of energy that we are consuming to extract groundwater, and two, the amount of energy we are consuming or expending to convert, say, seawater, desalination plants. These are all quite important. So any measure that either avoids the groundwater extraction or any measure that reduces the energy intensity of doing desalination is very helpful, and that is a very good indicator. So we could have indicators which says that by 2030 or 2040, we will reduce the groundwater extraction rate by a certain value or a certain percentage, because the groundwater extraction rate could be quite linked to the population growth. So if the population growth keeps on going up, so you expect the groundwater extraction rate to keep going up. Or even if it's, let's say, it stays constant, the quantum of groundwater extracted will increase. So it means by having a target which it says that we will reduce these many groundwater extraction rate, or as a relative to the population, or as a relative to that year, or as an absolute value, all of these are very good indicators. And still, you still need to convert it into your energy and ultimately your tons of CO2 equivalents, because that's what helps in framing it. So when you're reporting, you need to have both these things in in the BTRs and the CG. So you talk about the information for the reference points, levels, baselines, base years, so what are starting points as appropriate, whatever information that is relevant to measure that indicator. And this is again what will be reviewed in the technical inspect by the TERs. So they're not going to judge whether or not those indicators are appropriate. But then you say, like, when you have selected an indicator, when you've chosen it, like, how are you tracking it? And what is the information? How is that value? How good a system there is to make sure that that information is accurately reported. And next comes, as I said, like broadly speaking, the trajectories or budget, as we explained, or we try to go through the example of what the emission trajectories are, what are your baseline, what are your base BAU emissions and scenarios and projections, or whether you account for it in terms of carbon budgets, and how we're doing it, and the annual quantity of ITMOs that were transferred. And I think Uma gave excellent examples of the live examples on the UNFCCC website that talked about these things. But then one of the key things again is the annual emissions balance that is compared. In the interest of time, again, I'm looking at it, it's already 6 minutes or maybe 1 or 2 minutes left before it closes. The one thing that I wanted to add to Uma's presentation, and this is again taken from the UNFCCC website and the guidance that they have provided, is that the authorization and activity approval are slightly different, and we need to report on both of these aspects in the BTR and the corresponding ones. So we do have quite a bit of very clear distinction between these two actions. So there may be few activities that are approved, but they're not authorized for transaction. They're not authorized as ITMOs, or they're not authorized as, OIMP. They don't qualify for that. And they may be things that are only used for your domestic emission reductions targets. So like maybe it's used only for your own NDCs. So those don't require authorization. However, they would still need approval, whereas approval doesn't automatically mean authorization. So that's the one thing that I wanted to add. Looking at it, I added this slide in the last second, which Uma was covering. So the final set of slides that I'm going to cover are on the technical expert reviews, because I said like this is quite important, and this is again information that is available on both the UNFCCC website as well as through the training program, and also the material that our CTU unit has created, CTF unit has created, and there's quite a bit of training material and knowledge available. And this is also one of the things that we are targeting in the coming months to make it available in a wider language, especially for the region. So the TACC principles are again foundational to whatever the technical expert review team does. You have to facilitate, or at least their role is to facilitate the application of the robust accounting. And so all the question is on how is it accounted for? How are you tracking it? They're always going to be suggestive in the approaches that they say, and the recommendation that I'm sure we have live examples of the technical expert review teams or reports that have already been made available. There are a couple of ones at the UNFCCC website. There's also a couple of technical review of Article 6 transaction results that have also been completed. So those are all very good ones to look at. And it again facilitates improved reporting and transparency over time, just like we touched upon yesterday, and it tries to make it simpler for parties to participate. One parallel again that I would draw from the initial example that I talked about, like for example, if you want to look at your own expenses reports, imagine doing it for yourself, but imagine having to do it not just for yourself, but also to your family members, also to your neighbors, also to people who you don't know, who would absolutely refuse to give you any sort of information. So that's where the institutional arrangements come into the play. That's where the legal instruments and the laws and regulations that have been implemented in the country also help, because that gives the coordinating entity, usually the Ministry of Environment in the country, like get that authorization to go out and seek the data and seek that information, because ultimately it enables that kind of consolidation. And this applies at the Paris Agreement level in terms of the ratification process. So by ratifying the Paris Agreement, becoming members of the Paris Agreement, that's how the countries are committing or authorizing the Secretariat or the GR or someone else to come and say, like, can you please provide this information to us? The facilitating of that information and minimizing the burden on parties is quite critical and essential. Quickly, one other thing that I want to talk is the scope of the KER. So as I said, like this is again quite and this I want to doubly triply highlight. I hope the ink color, yeah. Okay, so there is a consistency of information, and I'm very quickly going to touch about what consistency of information is in the next slide, but it's only on consistency of information submitted by parties. And considering the results of the consistency check, and I think any CDM projects would, very quickly latch on to the experience that they had, where they had provided, and especially I'm sure, Uma, the same concepts are still applicable in 6.4, right? Like where the project first goes, even for validation, it goes, and then there is a consistency check, which says that whether all information, completeness check, whether all the information has been provided on, that was the first stage. Those were automated processes that were included, which meant that if at all you missed any bit of information, you went back into the bottom of the queue, and that was very, very annoying. So you just made sure that everything was reported, everything was properly done initially. And there was consistency check, which looked at whether or not all the relevant information has been provided at the same time. So instead of tons of CO2E, if you end up giving JG the install capacities, that would fail the consistency check, and then you would get back a report that say like this has failed. So those are the kinds of things which would help improving the system or improving the processes over time. And there's also one other aspect of it, which is the committee that would come and review this information, is that if a party especially keeps on failing these consistency, they would like to look at where their system is not functioning properly to facilitate that kind of process. So again, the committee is non-punitive. It doesn't go and admonish any countries and say like, why are you not done that? But they would look at it as a capacity approach and say like, why those countries are failing. Of course, I think the the scope is a little bit more stringent now. The kind of information that is reviewed compared to the BURs is a bit different, but that's more or less what comes from the committee, and especially consideration of any recommendations and inconsistency of areas of improvement, because they would provide this kind of suggestions. They would look at these inconsistencies and they would provide that recommendations, and they also want to look at the countries to reflect on these reflections, or reflect on these recommendations and act upon them. And if a country is unable to do it, they would like to facilitate that kind of reporting. And but that this does get to the CMA. I don't know if it is the substar, which one this goes to, but then they review those results at a later time. And again, as I said, like, ultimately, all of it comes down to identification of capacity building needs and areas of improvement. That is the ultimate aim of all of these exercises, is to make sure that all countries are moving in the right direction and going towards. So what does it mean by consistency? The consistency is, as I said, like complete, transparent information. So you have a lot of reports, so like different reporting requirements. You have the initial report, updated initial report, annual information, regular information, and all of this information that gets into the BTR or part of the other ones. And there is a necessity to make sure that the same kind of information. So, like for example, the time period of implementation or the time period of reporting, we need to make sure that it is pretty consistent. And especially across all parties, like when you have two 6.2 ITMOs that have been transferred between two countries, they are absolutely identical. That when country A says that they have sold 200 tons, and the same 200 tons are reported. It's not 201, 202, or 195. So that kind of consistency is quite critical to ensure that there are no uncertainties that keep on cropping up. And again, as I said, like it's not about appropriateness, but it is about the consistency of information that is provided. And again, like, so as I said, like, and I think this is what Uma also gave very good, live examples of the initial report, updated initial report by each party. And this is the kind of information that will be reviewed by the technical expert review team. And as I said, the results of the consistency check, that's what they're going to look at. They want to make sure that the party has enough systems in place, the party has enough mechanisms in place to do a QA/QC check internally to make sure that it is able to provide that kind of consistency. The TACC principle, transparent, accurate, consistent, comparable information and continuous information or complete information to the secretariat or to the BTR processes. Couple of or even the final slide is where we talk about the timeline. I think this is what Uma kind of touched upon very quickly when he talked about the 15th April review submission, and when the BTR submission happens, and I know standalone submissions or what it means by submissions alongside the BTR, how it reports, all of it comes from this. So if we take the cooperative approach started this year, and there's a certain period of time before which the initial report is submitted, and there is a review period that it undergoes. So year 2 is January, 1st January. So the initial report should be kind of before the 1st of January of the second year. And by 15th year, the information gets. And ideally speaking, again, under the review period, the BTR submission also happens. So so you have the before year 3s. So it didn't just give the example. Like year 3, before the year 3, for the year 1 and year 2, the BTR submission happens before the 31st of December of year 3. So it's T-2, keeping it consistent with the T-2 approach. Or submission alongside the BTR is like when both of these happen at the same time. And I think Uma can add more information, or you can look at the presentation and see where that kind of simultaneous submission along with BTR happens. Yeah, so that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Sid. That was very, very informative, and we can see your children.
Thank you.
God bless them. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
colleagues. For now, I will share my screen for the last Mentimeter that we have. Please try to join us, and you can scan the QR code, or either you can go to menti.com and enter the code here, 74 26 36 11. Please try to join us. And next year also we will try to do another webinar series on Article 6 with our partners, with GGI, RCC, MENA, to enhance more our capacities. We know that maybe 2 webinars are not enough to understand everything related to this topic, but we'll try our best to cover it again. But as we mentioned before, the scope for our project should be only on reporting. So reporting on Article 6 and everything related to Article 13. All right, we have 8 participants. We can wait for others to join. Let's make it at least 10. 11, right? All right. 13. And at the meantime, other people can still join by scanning the QR code, or as I mentioned, you can go to menti.com. So first question, from where are you joining us today? Emirates, Tunisia, Morocco. Nice. Jordan. We have with us also Egypt, Sudan. All right. Let's go to the second question. Please indicate your gender, male, female, other. Always more females. That's always the same case. All right. So let's start with the first question. We have 8 questions, and we will have also winner by the end. First question, Article 6 defines that parties shall pursue cooperation with other parties in implementing their NDC to allow for higher ambition in the mitigation. Is that true or false? This is a shall. It's mentioned here, shall, which means, is it mandatory? Right, we have 9 answer. The good answer is false, actually, because it's not shall. It's just on voluntary basis. Is that correct, Nasif?
Yes, of course. The main word here that you already mentioned is shall. So it's a voluntary cooperation under Article 6, and people are not forced to collaborate under Article 6. So the shall is the trick here.
Yeah. Question number 2. The Paris Agreement states that parties shall apply robust content when engaging in cooperative approaches that involve the use of ITMOs. Is that true or false? Now we are talking about the methodologies and counting approaches when a country is already engaged in cooperative approaches. Is it mandatory to have a robust counting system? Of course, true. So we have almost everybody got the good answer. The third question is, in addition to the information to be reported under the BTR, parties participating in cooperative approaches will need to present initial reports, annual information, regular information, or or all of the above, which means the three questions, the three answers, sorry. That's correct. The majority are saying all of the above. All right, we still have only 10 players. Please try to join us. Which of the following best describes the rule of the initial reports under Article 6.2? A. To report only ITMO transfers as an annual basis. To provide information on the cooperative approaches, authorization, and methods for corresponding adjustments. To summarize all NDC progress every 2 years, or to replace the regular information in the BTR. This is related to Article 6.2. Of course, it's B. Provide information on the cooperative approaches, authorizations, and methodology for corresponding adjustments. When must a party submit the initial reports? This is about time. When should we submit the initial reports? Is it A, at least the end of the NDC implementation period, at the time of the first ITMO issuance, or no later than the time of authorization of ITMOs, or with the next BTR, or every year by 31 December?
I just wanted to add that I had no influence on the question. So when I gave you the last slide, it had no way I had an imagination this question would come in.
Yeah. So the correct answer is C. So no later than the time of authorization, once you have your authorization of ITMOs or with the next BTR. Okay, question number 4. Which of the following is not a required element of the initial reports? Is it description of the cooperative approaches, ITMO authorization metrics and methods, annual quantity of ITMOs transferred and used, or quantification of the parties' NDC in ton CO2 equivalent? Which of the following is not a required element of the initial report? Yeah, the good answer is actually annual quantity of ITMOs transferred and used, because it's already the initial report. Is that right, Nasif, maybe we need more information here. Or Sid or Uma. All right, question number
So I
5.
can. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it
Yeah,
was.
please go ahead. Go ahead, Nasif.
I was
Here
off.
we are.
I was on mute. Okay. So can you come back to the question? Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Yes. So normally the good answer is the not good answer is the annual quantity of ITMO transferred and used, because as explained by Uma, this is object of the annual report that is going to that's going to be submitted before the 15th of April. And this is the one where we normally use the agreed electric format, and we submit the annual quantity of ITMOs transferred and used.
Right. Right. Question number 5. What is the main purpose of annual information under Article 6? A. To provide high-level political statements, to report all ITMO-related data on an annual basis, like, for example, authorizations, to summarize the NDC target, or to replace the structured summary.
Sorry, I
But
just replied to this in my
yeah,
explanation.
you just answered. So
Yeah,
it means that
yeah.
Nasif just answered this question. Correct. So to report all ITMOs related data and on an analysis basis. Annual information includes all of the following except one. Annual quantity of ITMOs first transferred, annual quantity of ITMOs used toward NDC, annual quantity of mitigation outcomes for other intern purposes, or national inventory report results. So one of these answers is not or should not be mentioned in the annual information. Yeah, it's about the national inventory, so we don't need to put the inventory. Before the last one, what is the rule of regular information in the BTR? Is it replaces initial reports and obligations submitted as an annex to the BTR, and it integrates all Article 6 participation, or C, it provides only aggregates emission trends, or it serves as an alternative to corresponding adjustments. What is the rule of regular information? In the BTR? How is it submitted? That's correct. The good answer is B, submitted as an annex to the BTR. And question number 8 is the final one. Which statements about regular information is correct? A, it is optional for developing countries. It only includes ITMO issuance data. It includes participation, requirements, authorization, corresponding adjustments, and annual information, or it is submitted outside the BTR cycle. So which statement about regular information is correct? And I see that we have a lot of good answers. And that's correct. The good answer is number C. Okay. Which of the following must be included in regular information as per decision 2 SEMA 3? Is it GDP trend, description of environmental integrity, assurance and metric, conversion methods, or IPCC methodology tables, or global stocktake summary? Which of the following must be included in regular information as per decision 2 SEMA 3? In the regular information. And I think, yes, that's the answer B, description of environmental integrity, assurance, and metrics. Which reporting element is directly subject to Article 6, technical expert review? Is it initial reports, annual information, and regular information? Only regular information or only NDC submitted under Article 4? Now we are talking about the link with technical expert review, which are the elements, and I see that we have a lot of good answers. That's great. Now Miriam. Who is Miriam? Miriam is the winner today. Congratulations, Miriam. So please just stay with us a couple of minutes, please. Now we just need your feedback on these series. And as I mentioned previously, next year, inshallah, we will try to do best to do another technical webinars with experience sharing from MENA countries, and why not other countries from the outside of MENA region. Please try to join us. We have already 15 participants, but we got only 7 answers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's Miriam, no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Congratulations, Miriam.
Thank
Where are you from?
Tunisia.
Tunisia. That's great. That's I think the only country from the MENA region which submitted already the initial report.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
congratulations.
That's true.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The second question was this event useful for your work? And we hope that it is. Great. We just reached out the objective of this webinar. And last question, what was the most useful that you will take away from this webinar? And by this, at the same time, I would like to call Sid or Nasif or Uma, if you would like to say a few words before we close this webinar series. We have all presentations, RCC and GGI rule in the MENA region. That's great. Article 6 readiness. That's great. Thank you very much for joining and for your participation to this Mentimeter. And now I'll hand it over to our colleagues, Uma or maybe Nasif.
Yeah, let's go with alphabetical order first. Nasif, Sid, and Uma.
All right, Nasif, please.
Right, so thank you very much. I will be brief. I think that this kind of training are very interesting to go through some specific type of reporting, as Uma said, kind of boring, but it's necessary for countries to Don't worry, Umar, it will stay here, just in this work. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's necessary for the country, especially as, for example, we see Tunisia submitting their first initial report. We see that Morocco, Jordan, and many other countries are now actively participating in Arctic 6 field. So they should absolutely be concerned by this thematics. And yeah, thank you very much for being here for the second day. And also congratulate the courageous people that stay until the end for these very intensive sessions, maybe 4 hours from now, today and yesterday. So yeah, I hope that you will be the ambassadors of Arctic 6 in your countries, and also, of course,
Inshallah.
we will stay here to support you in Arctic 6 and also in every matter that is going to support cooperative approach under Arctic 6. So yeah, we'll be brief, and what is, I think, S, so Sid will be next one. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nasif. Again, quite excellently summarized, and we're right in thanking all the participants, especially everyone who has stayed for nearly 5 years with us. As I said yesterday, it's easy to speak, but it's great that you have had like that consistent interest in this very dense topic. But also just again to reinforce it that we do this work and we all are in this effort collective. Ultimately, our objective is to make sure that whatever action we do results in concrete actions and concrete results in reducing the impacts, and every bit counts, and all the efforts that you are all putting into your own countries are quite essential. And thank you for letting us be part of your own capacity journey and letting us help you on that way. So thank you all. And again, thanks so much to the CIBIT GSP team, and thank you to Triple CRCC and to Nasif and all the other members as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sid. It's pleasure working with all of you guys. Uma, please.
Thank you. I think most of the points the colleagues Sid and Nasif has already covered. So maybe from my side, I would say that first of all, thank you so much, Keltum, for your patience. I know the amount of stress which we have given from our side to you to get this whole
But
thing
it was not
put in place.
it was not for nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm also glad to report that thanks to all the colleagues who stayed with us. Unfortunately, I could not join yesterday. Apologies for that. So, as a concluding thing from our side, I just posted the link of our Oman workshop. We are organizing this specifically for the NFPs, countries who are getting officially nominated. We do take care of their logistics. It's like funded by the UNFCCC. In case of any private sector participants, you are most welcome to come in on a self-participatory basis. So please try to reach out to your respective country NFPs. If we get an email from them, we'll be happy to put you into the invitation. So it's happening from 15th to 18th in Oman. So we normally do it on a regional level. So specific to the MENA 22 countries, the invitation is open to all. Unfortunately, because of the budgetary constraint, we could not extend beyond one participant from the country. It will be only for the government representative. So in addition to that, please watch out. We will be happy to collaborate with you with any of the country here to advance Article 6. So we work across the region towards the mandate. We want the Article 6 to happen in a better way in the region. So watch out for a lot of other interesting webinars which we will be doing it as a in the next week. There will be something which will be coming on the overall outcome of the COP. We will let you know all that as well. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Kaltum,
you
for
very
the
much,
opportunity.
Uma. Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Nasif.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Just one small request, because we didn't took the group picture. If you could just open your cameras, that would be great before closing. I took some pictures from the event, but okay. So that's great. Thank you very much, Nasif. Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Uma, for your patience. Thank you for the great collaboration. And this will not be the last one. Inshallah, see you next year. See you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Nagla. Bye-bye.
Bye.